Travel offers a spectrum of places to lay your head at night, each promising a unique chapter in the adventure. Your accommodation influences everything from how well you sleep to the people you meet. Hostels, capsule hotels, eco-lodges, short-term rental apartments, guest houses. I rented a room in a local family's house for my week in Cuenca, Ecuador. I heard wonderful things about this peaceful city nestled in the Andes. The historic center is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, with cobblestone streets lined with colorful houses and grand churches. After 12 days of snorkeling and scuba diving in the Galapagos, Cuenca sounded like a relaxing choice. Carmen, my host, picked me up from the airport. It was already dark out, so I couldn't make out the look of the city. The car stopped in front of a towering steel gate that looked like the entrance to a fortress. She pressed the button on a remote control, and the gate opened to reveal an enormous driveway leading to a 3-story house. Her brother-in-law lived next door, and her father-in-law lived the next street over. Carmen and her family lived on the 3rd floor. The 4 bedrooms on the 1st and 2nd floor were for the guests. 3 of the bedrooms were already rented out long-term. The house had beautiful hardwood floors, renovated bathrooms, and 2 kitchens, one indoor and one outdoor. I assumed her husband worked in an office because I only ever saw him in a suit and tie. Carmen managed the house, looked after the guests, and took care of her teenage daughter, whose younger cousin often came over to do homework together. There were 2 refrigerators in the indoor kitchen, one for the family and one for the guests. The shelves, cabinets, and drawers were also clearly labeled. I saw a video camera in the corner by the laundry room, another in the living room, and one more on the 2nd floor hallway. If I had a teenage daughter and rented rooms to strangers in my family home, I'd do the same. Carmen rented out more than just 4 spare bedrooms. On my first night, I was getting ready for bed when a large camper van pulled into the driveway. Its occupants were a German family of 4 who were traveling through Latin America. The parents were homeschooling their 2 young daughters, ages 9 and 12, and both taller than me. They were heading to Peru next, trying to get to Patagonia before winter when the roads would be icy. The parents told me it took 2 years to plan and execute this 1-year trip, involving multiple arguments with the children's school to allow homeschooling on the road. The next morning, a second, even larger camper van pulled into the driveway. I learned later that it used to be an old fire truck. Its occupants were also a German family of 4 who were traveling through Latin America but in the opposite direction and heading towards Colombia. They were also homeschooling their sons, ages 6 and 8, and both shorter than me, but probably not for long. They played the German national anthem later that afternoon, and again the next morning. One must expect the unexpected while traveling in foreign countries. Hearing the German national anthem in Ecuador while lying in my bed was definitely one of them. Soon, both camper vans were gone. It felt like an asteroid cleared the driveway, leaving its sudden emptiness. I left for an afternoon walk and returned to find 2 motorcycles leaning against the brick wall. 2 orange tents bloomed out of the concrete like poppies. 2 bearded men sipped coffee by the outdoor kitchen. The next day they were gone, replaced by a bicycle and a blue tent. I could hear someone snoring from inside. Modes of travel are as varied as your imagination allows. I wondered about my host's family finances. It was the house of a well-off family, but renting out every single available space, including the driveway, seemed to signify there was a concern in making ends meet. I was surprised to find there was a German language teaching scene in Cuenca. One of my housemates was actually a German teacher, though I rarely saw her. The other 2 housemates were Ecuadorian women, who I also rarely saw. One had no front teeth. The city is home to over 10,000 American expats. I wasn't sure where they were, since Cuenca is a small colonial city. I walked around for hours every day, but didn't see or hear many Americans. I did hear about a group of retired Americans who went hiking in one of the national parks without a guide. They were in their 70s, and the high altitude, combined with their age, caused them to faint. And they died on the mountain. Ecuador's national power rations were limited to only 2 hours per day here. In Quito, it was 4 hours. Even so, it hurt local businesses. At the end of my 14-month journey through Latin America, the power cuts were still happening, and for up to 10 to 14 hours each day, as well as water rationing in some areas. I went to a coffee shop for a cappuccino and had to wait an hour for the electricity to be turned back on. The friendly barista named Santiago told me earlier he had to turn away a group of 10 because they came during the power cut. Even though he said the power would come back in an hour, they never returned. Santiago managed the cafe, ran a film photography development service on the side, and had his own marketing and advertising business. He said, "No one can afford to have only one job to live in Cuenca." Prices do feel high in Ecuador after living in Colombia. $2.50 got me a small bowl of soup at the market cafeteria, but I wouldn't feel full afterwards. At the local market in Medellin, I got soup, a large main course, and a fresh juice for $3 or $4. The selection of fruits and vegetables was abundant, along with bags of coffee, chocolate, and other Andean sweets. I bought a half-kilo bag of dark chocolate for $5. I noticed with amusement the sacks of dry pet food was placed right next to the sacks of brown lentils. I discovered that shopping at the smaller market around the corner from my house was actually cheaper than the large market in the city center. My guess was, the shop owner noticed I lived in Carmen's house and gave me the proper local price. I was probably given tourist prices at the larger market. There was an earthquake later in the week, but I didn't feel it. Carmen didn't speak much English and didn't know the word for earthquake. She did an adorable shimmy as a charade. Her hair was so thick it looked enough for 3 people. Her voice had the warmth and softness of a mother who truly loved being a mother. She had 2 daughters. One was 30, living in the capital. The other just turned 18, living at home. Carmen was cooking lunch when I returned from my afternoon walk. Her younger daughter, Elena, got 10 out of 10 on an exam, and Carmen was making hamburgers as a reward. I don't believe I've ever gotten a reward for good grades. To have good grades in school was expected of me, as was the case with virtually all immigrant families. Bad grades were punished, so they were rare. Good grades were treated as ordinary. I wondered how Elena felt about the constant flow of strangers coming and going, both inside the house and out on the driveway. Growing up, I was never allowed to have anyone come over. Family meals were rare because my mother was a full-time waitress while my father was a full-time university student. Elena was applying for university. Her dream was to study painting and to be a muralist. Fortunately, Ecuador's public universities were free, and the one in Cuenca was only a 20-minute walk from the house. Unfortunately, Elena was autistic and had trouble communicating her thoughts in writing. Carmen assumed a degree in fine arts only involved drawing and painting. She was dismayed after finding out there were written essays and papers involved. She paid a visit to the university professors, telling them about Elena's special needs. They were confused, since Elena showed no signs of a learning disability. She was intelligent, talkative, and had high grades in school. They did not realize her homework assignments were assisted by her mother patiently sitting next to her, reading out the question and writing down Elena's verbal responses. Carmen requested that Elena be allowed to use auto-dictation for her written exams, but both the professors and administration refused, saying Elena would have to fulfill her responsibilities like everyone else, because she appeared to be like everyone else. Carmen told me a private institute would be an option. Expensive, but an option to help her daughter achieve her dreams. Across from the dining room table were a dozen of Elena's art projects displayed on the counter. I could see she loved bright colors, made bold combinations, and had intricate attention to detail. Her talent in visual arts was obvious, even from a young age. How lovely it sounded to stay cocooned in the love and safety of your family as you work towards a university degree, growing into adulthood with their support and guidance. I moved to New York City for university when I was 17. I knew absolutely nothing about the world or how to take care of myself. Carmen looked at me and asked, "Do you want to be a mother someday?" I shook my head no. I've known since I was 10 years old that motherhood wasn't for me. I love children. I've worked with children for years, but I don't want them. I decided to leave Cuenca much sooner than I expected. It was a beautiful, walkable Spanish colonial city. I felt safe, and I had a comfortable and affordable accommodation with the kindest of hosts. Yet I couldn't help but feel I needed to move on. I was sitting in a cafe and spoke to two cheerful German teachers who lived in Cuenca for over a year. They had a purpose here. I wondered if they knew anything about Cuenca before moving. It isn't a well-known Latin American city. I suspect they found an opportunity and took it because the timing was right and there was nothing to lose. I envied their anchor because they seemed happy while I was feeling melancholy. I used to have this dream. I'd be rushing to board an airplane with my bag in one hand, my passport and ticket in the other. Passengers were boarding for my flight and I hadn't even cleared security yet. Somehow I make it. I'm in my seat and we depart. In the middle of the flight, there's an announcement. We were changing our destination. Instead of Tokyo, we're heading to Marrakesh. Instead of Sydney, we're heading to Sao Paulo. I immediately start panicking, but then I realize it doesn't matter where I'm going because I'm always going somewhere anyways. The thing is, I can never plan on how I'll feel once I get to where I'm going. Anywhere can be home, yet nowhere is. This filled me with a deep sense of peace and melancholy. I just finished reading Pachinko by Minjin Lee. The story is a multi-generational saga that follows a Korean family across 4 generations as they immigrate to Japan in the early 1900s. The novel explores themes of racism, displacement, family, resilience, and the challenges of finding a place to belong. The story put my own life into perspective. The characters' struggles were due to circumstances beyond their control, while mine were a result of my chosen path of travel. I'm not fighting for survival. This journey is a conscious choice, a deliberate step towards gaining a deeper understanding of the world. Traveling alone for extended periods can often cast a melancholic shadow. The constant change of scenery and the absence of familiar faces can sometimes lead to a sense of loneliness and longing. However, it's important to remember that these emotions are universal. Whether one is a solo traveler like myself or a devoted wife and mother like Carmen, life is marked by both joy and sorrow, connection and solitude. We must remember our agency and carry on with courage and resilience. You never know who you'll meet next while traveling long term. During my final month in Mexico City, a 17-year-old boy moved into my house. Find out how this unexpected friendship blossomed in this video.